October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. The ToosDay Crue is here, hosted by Stephen LaMonica and Jay Collin. It is a Misfit Nation production that brings powerful stories of grit, resilience, and leadership to life. Stephen is a business leader and YouTube consigliere, ensures the show runs smoothly, providing real-time feedback and maintaining discipline during live broadcasts. Jake, a 25-year Army veteran and former EOD tech. We call him Hurt Locker. We call him Lacey. Offers deep insights from his extensive service, which includes multiple combat deployments and VIP missions around the globe. Together, They welcome guests from diverse backgrounds to share their journeys, inspiring listeners with stories of overcoming adversity and leading with purpose. Whether you're tuning in for the insightful discussions, or to enjoy Steven's passion for NASCAR, or Jake's anecdotes from his farm in Kentucky, the ToosDay Crue delivers a unique blend of entertainment and inspiration every week. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ToosDay Crue! All right. It's Tuesday. The Misfit Nation presents the ToosDay Crue. Today is the day. The signs come down tomorrow, and you are part of history. Either we have the first ever president to be elected in a non-sequential term, or we get the first female president. Either way, we'll wake up tomorrow, we'll put our pants on one leg at a time and be grown folk. We won't be jackasses. If you did not vote, shame on you, and do not complain. Our record is over. We lost another officer. Today we remember police officer Enrique Martinez of the Chicago Police Department in Illinois. He was taken from us yesterday. His end of watch Monday, November 4th, 2024. Keep him, his family, his friends in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this tough time. And now, let's give you Jake. Let's give you Steve. It's the ToosDay Crue!
What an entrance. Good evening. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm glad. I felt that energy. The energy just ran through me.
I tell you what.
He's very excited.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I want to remind everybody, first of all, welcome to the show, and like, subscribe, and share. And I think we got a good one this evening, Stephen.
Yeah, we do. I was looking through the bio, then I clicked on YouTube. It seems like it's going to be a very good chat this evening.
I think it is. I am a fan of horror. I'm especially, I like old horror B flicks. That's kind of my thing. And yeah, I'm interested to get Gary on here, and shoot, let's get him on here.
All right. Welcome, Gary Hill. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm Steve. This is Jake.
Good to meet you guys. I got to say, after that wrestling introduction to the show, I don't know what's going on here. Seems like we ought to come out here and throw down or something. I don't know.
We're going to throw down. We're going to do a lot of things.
Gary, I looked at your bio. You're an author. A writer. You've done some production of horror, where you're a horror character, I guess, and you seem to be a fan of that. And we didn't really go too much into your bio, so why don't you take a few minutes and tell us about yourself?
You guys can hear me okay? Because I seem to my video looks like it's locked.
Your video's locked. We hear you fine.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Okay. So yeah, I started writing. Well, I mean, I started writing when I was a kid, but as far as actually publishing stuff and everything, I started doing that in '98 when I started doing Music Street Journal, doing music reviews and things, and that site kind of grew. And then I started getting into other writing from there. My first book was The Strange Sound of Cthulhu, music inspired by the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, which is nonfiction. And I also started doing some fiction writing after that. And I started a publishing thing called Tales of Wonder and Dread Publishing. I've done a lot of freelance writing. And then maybe 5 years ago, I started doing YouTube, doing videos on there. And this past beginning of September, my wife and I went to Indianapolis and shot some scenes for a little horror short we get to be in. And I'm going to also be, I do Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary, where I'm a horror host. And I'm going to get to do that character in a movie called Halloween Shark soon, that I'm going to be filming remotely, my part. And so, yeah, lots of weird little stuff. Just basically the stuff I'm interested in, It seems like it's all over the place, but it's things I'm interested in.
Cool deal. Now, you said you went to Indianapolis. Are you from around that area?
Actually, I'm from about probably 70 or 80 miles west of Chicago. So
okay.
It was about a 4.5 hour drive. We didn't go through Chicago because the traffic is a nightmare through Chicago. So we kind of went down Illinois and over, and it was about a 4.5 hour drive. Yeah.
Okay. Reason I ask is there was a very, very popular horror host in Indianapolis that had a show on Saturday nights. His name was Sammy Terry.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, awesome. If you catch any of his stuff on YouTube, he's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've not seen him, but I've heard of him. I'm a huge Svengoolie fan, so
okay.
I used to watch other horror hosts growing up, but Svengoolie it's a Saturday ritual in our house. It has to be on every single Saturday night, so don't miss it.
Cool. Yeah.
Also read your bio. You wrote some for cops.
Yeah. Okay. That was kind of a weird thing. I don't know if you saw it, but on G4 TV, when G4 TV was still around, they did a show called Cops 2.0, which what they did was they aired old Cops episodes, but then they had interactive content in there, and people would go in and answer trivia questions and things like that. Well, I wrote probably 3/4 of the episodes. I wrote the interactive content for it, which was kind of fun. Did that. I think that was about, 7 months. I think I was working on that. Yeah, it was fun. And I learned a lot about police officers at the time because I got into, I was allowed to take part in some police forums. They let me in because I wanted to get more information about what it's like to be a police officer and things like that. So, because I wanted to be as realistic as possible.
Okay. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of like, you said you was writing for Cops 2.0. It's got you kind of get to overdub the original. That's
right. I mean, all the stuff we had was sort of down on the bottom of the screen, and there were different things. There were like trivia questions. There were little factoids and like little details that are police kind of procedural things and little stuff like that. I mean, it's been quite a few years since I did it. It's a little blurry on what all I wrote, but yeah, it was an experience.
I imagine it was. That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool. I'm gonna have to go back and look up some of those old episodes and check them out.
I don't know if they've got those out on YouTube or what. G4 doesn't exist as a network anymore. It got absorbed by another network, which I don't remember what it is, but the stuff might be out there somewhere. I remember I was wanting to get DVDs of all the episodes so I'd have them, and I never did. So I think I have maybe half a dozen of the finished episodes somewhere that I taped off of TV, but that's it.
You said it was Cops 2.0?
Yes.
If anybody can find it, Steven will find it.
I'm pretty good at research too, and the funny thing is I've never gone out there and looked.
They got videos on YouTube. So
oh, do they?
I'm guessing.
All right.
Thinking maybe, although there might be copyright issues, so who knows? YouTube's pretty crazy with the copyright stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are.
Trust me, I know that from the horror hosting thing too. I mean, I go out, all the stuff I do is public domain, but I actually had one that all my research said was public domain. I uploaded it and they're like, nope, that movie's copyright. So I had to completely redo the episode last minute. So yeah, they're pretty crazy with that stuff.
So what's your, excuse me.
Yeah, you're fine.
In horror, what's your favorite genre of horror?
I'm really big into cosmic horror. As far as stuff I like, but I'm also a vampire fanatic. I just love vampires. I've written so much vampire fiction. In fact, I do it as short stories, And my idea is to join them all together into one book at some point, which is going to be kind of weird because it's obvious that they're written in very different voices and different flavors. So I've decided I'm going to take them all and sort of be like an anthropologist has found all of these and is gathering them all together and sort of doing some border stuff around it to kind of link them together. But it's going to be historical because I go with my fiction on vampires. I go all the way back to what I have for the fictional origin of the vampire, which is in ancient Sparta. Where basically, they were very much interested in creating the perfect athlete and the perfect warrior. And so my idea is, in my story, is that they did that by alchemy and accidentally wound up with a vampire and tried to destroy it. And they did destroy that vampire, but he had already created one more. And then the whole vampire family went out from there. And it's going to go all the way up to modern day.
Okay.
And I've got a few characters that are recurring characters and things. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I would say weird fiction, cosmic horror, and vampires are probably my favorites. But I like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, my wife is a huge fan of vampires. If it's a vampire movie, it's probably going to play in our house at one time or another. And I'm a big fan of. I like the Underworld series in the vampire genre, and I was a big fan of that. And some of the others that the original Dracula movie that I saw with Jack Palance. That was that
was that the Dan Curtis one? I think that was done by Dan Curtis.
Yeah, which don't get me lying on it.
I believe so. As I'm remembering, I think that's the Dan Curtis one, which I love Dan Curtis's stuff. He did some. He did Kolchak the Night Stalker. He did the old Dark Shadows, which Dark Shadows was what got me into vampires. I was a little kid, and I would run home from school so I could watch Dark Shadows and see the vampire Barnabas Collins on there, and so I think that was the Dan Curtis one with Jack Palance.
Yeah, and I remember watching it as a kid, and I'm gonna have to rewatch that one because I really enjoyed that one.
That was out in '74, right? Bram Stoker's Dracula, Dan Curtis Dracula. Yeah.
Is that Jack Palance?
Yes, Jack Palance.
Yep, that's the one.
There you go.
And
you're talking. I'm Googling. I'm making sure we got all the information.
You're the research man over there.
Steve's our fact checker.
You see my head move, it's because I'm looking at the other screen.
Nothing wrong with
that. And also, and if you haven't seen it, watch Blackula.
Oh yeah, and there's a sequel too. They're both a lot of fun.
Yes, they are. That was another good one. But
there are so many great vampire movies.
I could talk about horror and vampire movies. I just love them. So what's your top 5?
Vampire or horror?
No, your top 5 horror movies.
Well, the number one is Color Out of Space, which is I don't know if you've seen it. It's actually pretty recent, just a couple of years ago, with Nicolas Cage, and it's an H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, and it is crazy over the top, and it is so much fun. Before that, in the number 2 spot is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. I'm a John Carpenter fanatic, so anything John Carpenter does, I love. But Prince of Darkness, I really like. One of the things I like about Carpenter, and it was true of, even though Color Out of Space wasn't done by Carpenter, I like the fact that it's sort of like a snowball effect. It starts out very small and just gradually gets bigger, and before you know it, you're into this really, really deep stuff, and
Yeah.
everything crazy is going on. And I like that in a movie. And so Prince of Darkness would probably be number 2. Beyond that, it gets a little weird. Carpenter's The Thing is really good. In the Mouth of Madness is another one of his that's really good. But I also love the first Halloween, and I love
classic.
the Friday the 13th movies. So
Yes, all classics.
yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I could pick the other 3. The first 2 are easy. The rest of them, not so much.
I completely understand. So when you're Scary Gary,
Yes.
now what's your theme or what's your shtick that you do when you're on there? I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, so if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Scary Gary is kind of a little like me. I don't put on a crazy voice or anything for that character. I do have actually 2 characters on that show now. There weren't for the first couple episodes, but from the 3rd on, there were 2 characters. But Scary Gary is, I've got this mask that's sort of a half skull face mask. And I was going for kind of a Phantom of the Opera thing with that. But, I've got the top hat, and he's, dressed up tuxedo thing, but a bow tie that's all bloody. And, his shtick, he lives in a castle. And he does weird experiments sometimes. One episode, I was trying to create a remote reporter who wouldn't ask me a bunch of stupid questions, and I kept getting mimes that I just kept sending out into the wilderness. And I'm like, oh, I think the police might be here because of all the stream of mimes leaving the castle. But yeah, he's a fun character. And like I said, the 3rd episode, I introduced another character, this remote reporter, DB Lovecraft. Now, DB's fun. And it's funny because I actually credit DB as Dark Star, which isn't a pen name I sometimes use, and it's also an old band stage name that I had. But DB kind of looks like your typical Grim Reaper, with the skull and, skeleton hands. And then he's got like a purple cloak, and but he has a news reporter microphone that he has on all of the time. And DB is literally a dead person. He's been dead, for a very long time. We haven't established just when, but he actually broke the news as a reporter. He broke the news about Napoleon surrendering. And, he used to send in news reports on telegraph. And so he's pretty old. And he also, that one, because the mask won't move, the mouth on the mask doesn't move, and you couldn't hear me if it did. So I record the audio for that separately and then do sort of a demonic thing with the effects on the voice. So he sounds different. And he and Scary Gary don't exactly get along so well because DB likes to complain about everything, and Scary Gary's always griping at him about complaining. And so they get along, but not that well. Sometimes there's a lot of conflict between them.
Kind of a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, kind of. It's pretty fun. And the DB gets to most of the shots of DB are done with green screen, and then I just add in scenes from the movie. But for the last Halloween episode, I did. Let's see. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm thinking because DB also shows up on my spooky news segments. Mm-hmm. On the spooky news segments on the last one at Halloween, I actually did some green screen, but I used background of my own house with my Halloween decorations, and then I did some live footage of DB outside the house with my Halloween decorations. But I don't think I haven't used any live stuff for Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary of DB yet, but I might just do that at some point.
Okay. Now, do you do any live appearances of Scary Gary?
No, but I would certainly be willing to do it. I would love to if somebody wants to have me do it at some point.
Okay. Well, Maybe we'll
I'm
get
sure local Comic Cons and stuff.
Yeah.
They would bring you. There's a guy here in New Jersey dresses up as a vampire. He goes out and does shows everywhere.
Yeah, I actually did. I did hand out trick or treat candy this year as Scary Gary. Unfortunately, I scared some of the kids too much, but
our producer is a huge Halloween fan. He probably wins the neighborhood every year with his display. It's awesome.
Well, of course he wants. He's the head of the HOA, so he votes himself right in there. So.
oh, well, there you go.
I knew there was a trick to that.
He's got an edge right there.
Oh, so you got a lot on your plate. What's coming up? You got anything? You got anything new cooking?
Well, I'm trying to get I'm trying to get the next episode of Spooky Movie Time done, but I've had a bunch of PC problems lately, and I just bought a new PC. I have to get it hooked up to do it because I'm having trouble rendering the video for it. My PC keeps crashing. But so there's another episode. It should be coming up right before Thanksgiving. It's going to be our turkey episode, which is going to be fun. I'm going to show Turkey Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is a lot of people say is the worst movie of all time. I've seen worse movies. I'm always doing the Movie Knots thing where we get together, the three of us on a panel, and sometimes we'll have a guest, and we talk about movies. We do that once a month. And then I guess, so I mentioned that when we went out to Indianapolis to film that short, I just found out recently that short, I think, is going to be coming out on YouTube possibly before Christmas, which will be cool.
Okay.
It's called She Knows, and it's supposed to be hitting YouTube at some point, hopefully before Christmas, is what the producer or director Steve Morris said the other day. So that should be fun. And I'm, always got Music Street Journal going.
Okay. Now, when you was a kid, you talk about, getting into horror and all that. When you was a kid, did you like to be scared? I mean, did it excite you, or was you kind of, because I know when I was a kid, I actually I'd watch a movie and then, be scared to go to bed. And I liked that. I mean, that was just, I knew I was going to be scared to go to bed. My mother and father knew I was going to be scared to go to bed, but I could not get enough. And the producer just typed up on her, that was the nuns at my school that were scared.
Catholic school, I'm telling you, back then. 70s, early 80s, really bad.
Sister Mary Bennett, forgive me, but
I did like being scared. I watched a lot of things. Like I watched when Kolchak the Night Stalker ran the first time, which was 73, maybe 74.
Yeah. And Darren McGavin was great in that.
Oh, he was. I've got a friend who said that if that show had gone a second season, he would go down as being one of the greatest characters on television of all time. And I think that's true. He was a great character, great actor. But so I watched that all the time. But I do remember, and I don't know how old I was, but I do remember there was a horror movie show on TV when I was a kid called Dementia 13, where I live. And I begged my mother one night. I was like, let me stay up and watch it, because I think it went on till like midnight or something. And I was like, I promise I won't be scared. And I watched it. It was The Pit and the Pendulum. And the whole night I had the light on in my room. I was watching for ghosts, and I was terrified.
I used to get that because I used to read a lot as well. And I can remember when, I don't know how old I was, I read the Amityville Horror, and I would only read it. And I lived, and now, hey, no comments, Stephen. I lived in the basement, and I would only read it during the daylight hours, and I would only read it upstairs. I would not read it in my room. And that book left scars.
That book, I remember when I was maybe, I don't know, I don't know if I was turning 13, 14, 15, right in that range when it came out. And my mother's friend had read it, and she gave me her hardcover copy for my birthday, and that she had read. And I read that thing, and that book was terrifying for me at the time.
Yes.
And I loved it, but it was terrifying.
You start hearing creaking sounds around your house, and it's like, uh-oh, am I going to see, the
Jody.
Yeah, Jody looking through the window at me.
With his red eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot of, and you know what? I read a lot of supernatural, supposedly true stuff, and I read a lot of UFO stuff at the time too. I was big into reading that stuff, and I do a lot of that kind of writing too now. To be honest, I'm very much a skeptic. I don't really believe the stuff, but I find the stories fun anyway. My wife says a ghost could walk up next to me and grab me, and I would try to find some reasonable explanation for it. And she's right, I would. And a lot of times I've experienced some things over the years, and my usual answer is, nah, it's just my imagination, because I just can't really wrap my head around that stuff being true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I used to read a lot of that stuff too.
We gotta believe it for it to be true.
Yeah.
What's that?
What it is. You have to believe it for it to be true.
Yeah, exactly. If I don't believe it, it's not true.
Right.
Hey, we actually got a question from Mothman34 on Google. Why horror, and who was or is your biggest inspiration?
For writing horror? And why? Okay, so horror. You know what? I do science fiction too. I do other stuff, obviously, but I've always just been attracted to horror as long as I can remember. Like I say, I remember running home and watching Dark Shadows because of the vampire. So horror has been sort of part of my life since I was a kid, and I've just been attracted to it. I don't know why, but I love horror. As far as biggest inspiration, I think it was a lot of those early TV shows like Kolchak the Night Stalker and Dark Shadows and stuff. I think were the ones that really were the biggest inspiration for it. More recently, then when I got into H.P. Lovecraft, and it was funny how I got into H.P. Lovecraft's writing. I came across it just sort of totally backwards because I remember going to see the movie Reanimator when it came out in the theater, and everybody was going nuts over it. And then I started seeing other shows that were based on H.P. Lovecraft stuff, and I thought, well, I want to start reading this stuff. So I started getting the books and reading them, and got really fascinated by his work. So I don't know. He was, he was the one who, without his writing, I would have never written my first book probably. And so I suppose he was a big inspiration too, just because it got me my first book, which is probably the best received book I've ever done. And, it's still the best selling book I've ever done. I don't know if you're familiar with S.T. Joshi, who is, he's probably the greatest living Lovecraft scholar. And he wrote the foreword to the book for me. And I found out later from a friend of mine, and I wound up asking ST, I was like, is it okay if I tell people this? And he said, sure, go ahead. He said that the book was one of the most interesting books he'd ever read, which I was like, oh, that's awesome. But, so without Lovecraft, I don't know what I would have, if I would have gotten into a lot of the stuff that I've gotten into. But I sort of came across that backwards. And John Carpenter's a huge inspiration too. Like I say, I love John Carpenter's movies, and I just really started following him for a while. And so I would consider him an inspiration too. It's funny for writing. I think for me, cinematic stuff is a lot more of an influence than actual writing literature is. Mm-hmm. And I tend to write in a way I tend to see it as a movie or a TV show when I'm writing, and honestly, if I had the resources and if I had the skill set, I would be doing them as movies instead of writing them as books and stories. But the funny thing is, I'm sort of working on those skills and stuff like that. I'm learning now that I hung around a film set and talk to all the people. I'm learning a lot of this stuff and I'm making a lot of connections. And who knows, maybe I'll start making movies. I actually have an idea. When I do the Spooky Movie Time with Scary Gary, the first thing we show in every episode is a silent short movie, right? Well, there are only so many of those out there that are horror. And eventually I'm going to run out of them. So I've got the bright idea. I'm going to start making my own silent short movies sometime after the first of the year, because I'm sure I can pull that off. And then maybe from there I'll work in towards more, sound movies and, color movies and, longer pieces. But yeah, that's why I think, TV and movie stuff is more my inspiration than literature is in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and you talk about the cinema part of it, and a lot of it I think is the presentation, and I think that's why I kind of like a lot of the older stuff, because to me there's something spookier about black and white.
Yeah, there is something.
I don't know what it is, but it's just I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, and somehow black and white almost seems more real in a way, and it doesn't make sense, but it almost seems.
Oh no, it makes sense. It does make sense. It brings your imagination more into it.
And I also think, I talked about this in another interview I did recently. We were talking about this, and like with black and white, I think they have to work harder in some ways because they don't have the color palette to use to grab people's attention. So you'll notice they're a little more careful with the use of shadow a lot of times and things like that I think really add to the experience.
Oh, yeah. Because I mean, you look at a lot of the old Hitchcock stuff, and a lot of it is not really. I mean, some of it is scary, but a lot of it is more psychologically scary than it is visually scary.
Right. And okay, that's another one, by the way, when we were talking about favorite movies, Psycho has to fit right in there somewhere.
That goes without saying.
Yeah, that's my wife's favorite film, period. And we watch the whole series somewhat frequently in this house. Those are awesome movies.
Yeah. We got another question.
All right.
From Jers Avon on Google. Big fan of sci-fi horror crossovers. Do you like Toxic Avenger, and why is he your favorite sci-fi character?
Well, because he's from New Jersey.
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
First part of the question. Yes, I do like Toxic Avenger. I have not seen it in many years, but God, that movie was a lot of fun, and he was a lot of fun. I don't know about my favorite though, but yeah, and you know what? That's a very indie sort of movie, and I very much like indie movies too. A lot of times I think you get something from an indie film that you don't get from the big budget because they have to be clever in the way they do things. And sometimes they're not that successful, but at least they're really trying and they're really committed to it. And Toxic Avenger was like that. Toxic Avenger was very indie. It was very low budget, and it was a lot of fun. And it was, crazy over the top silly in a lot of ways, but it worked.
Well, and another thing about the indie stuff, they really don't have to follow any set rules because generally they're funding it themselves, and there's nobody higher up that says no, you can't do that.
Right.
And,
they're like, it's my mom's basement. I can film whatever I want.
Exactly.
Let me just say this about indie movies too, indie horror especially, because that's kind of where I'm into, is Look around, Indiegogo and Kickstarter. There are a lot of projects out there, and you can get involved with them for a small amount of money, and you can be part of the project, and contribute to it and help these people get stuff going, which is pretty cool. It's very important, I think, for the community to support those projects. I mentioned Steve Morris, who did She Knows, and he's very much, he does all of his stuff through crowdfunding like that. And my wife and I both decided, we're supporting anything he does in any way we can, because he's a really good guy and he does good work. And, it's good to support a lot of these people and a lot of these projects.
Yeah, because they could be the next John Carpenter.
Yeah, and trust me, if you send John Carpenter some money to put towards a movie, he's not going to notice. These people notice.
Yes,
you send them $30 or $40, and they notice it. It helps them.
That Toxic Avenger opened the door for Kevin Smith to say, "Hell, let's make Clerks."
Yeah, I'll forgive it. No, sorry, my wife loves Clerks. I do not.
Clerks and Clerks 2 is awesome.
Oh, I'm not a fan.
You got to be from Jersey.
Yeah, you got to be from Jersey.
Oh, maybe that's it.
I'm not, but I still like it.
Yeah, I'm not, but
not everybody's as good as us.
Okay, Stephen. So, Gary, I would imagine, just like everything else, I don't know, I could be wrong, your books are available on Amazon?
Some of them are. Some of them are not. There's a little story involved with that. Early on, I was distributing all my books to Amazon. And then I got a little fed up because I publish on Lulu. And if you publish on Lulu, then you have to do a distribution package, which at first Lulu charged for the distribution package a one-time fee. They don't do that anymore. But here's the problem. When you do the distribution that gets them on Amazon, the amount that Lulu takes and then the amount that Amazon takes, you have to raise the price of the book way up, and you get almost nothing for it. And I just got a little fed up with that because I felt like the prices were too high, and it wasn't fair to the people buying the books. And I started, it's been about 3-4 years now that I stopped distributing to Amazon. So none of the books published for the last 3 or 4 years are available on Amazon, which is probably to some degree a bad idea because you get lower visibility. But I just feel that the pricing isn't fair to people wanting to buy the books. There's one, the Strange Sound of Cthulhu, the hardcover 10th anniversary edition. Mm-hmm. In order to get it on Amazon to make anything from it, I think I had to price it at $40-some. And I had a sale on it like a year ago, and I think I made $1 off of it. Maybe it was a little less than $1, and everybody else got the rest of the money. And it just seems ridiculous.
And then you had to pay taxes on that buck.
Yeah. Yeah. So I stopped distributing to Amazon. Any of them can be found on lulu.com. And also through my website where, Lulu's interface isn't very functional. It isn't very user-friendly. So I set up a website where you can find, it has the links to all the books at GaryHillAuthor.com, and you can go there, and every single book I've published is available there. You can find the link to the paperback, the link to the hardcover, the link to the Goodreads page for it. There are a lot of pages for all the Music Street Journal books, pages for Tales of Wonder and Dread, pages for my own books. The newer stuff isn't available on Amazon. Unfortunately, I just didn't think that's fair to anybody.
Okay, and that's at GaryHillAuthor.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Got another question here.
All right.
From Con High Climb. Do you have tips for us to get into making films or writing books?
Okay, here's one. I've got tips for both. Let's go with the films first because you asked that. It depends on what you want to do in films. Actually, kind of the same answer either way. But if you want to be involved with films, look up some of these indie filmmakers and talk to them. If you want to pay for a role in one of them, you can contribute to their Indiegogo. You show up, you do your job. But here's the beautiful part. If you've never been on a movie set, and I had never been on one until we went there is a lot of sitting around, unless you're like the guys, the director and stuff. They're busy all the time. But otherwise, there's a lot of sitting around doing nothing. Well, don't just do nothing. Talk to the other people around you. These people know their stuff. They're either new or they've been around and they've got different skill levels. Ask questions, listen, learn. And if you are willing to do whatever you need to do to help them get their jobs done, they're going to be likely to have you come on board for future projects, and you'll keep learning. You make contacts. We were there 2 days, and I made some friends with people who I think I'm going to be friends with for years. Just very, very good people. And, they're at different levels of their, careers or whatever. I don't know if you want to call it a career in that level of indie, but their careers in film. And, you network with these people, you get to know them, and you show up and you ask them what they need you to do, and you can get into this. It's work. It's also, like I say, if you're just getting started out, it's going to be a lot of sitting around. But again, talk to the people around you. Plenty of cool people. As far as writing, let me just say this: write every single day. I don't care what you write every single day. May not be something you're going to publish, but like anything, you exercise a muscle, it gets bigger. You need to learn a skill, you do it over and over and over. The more you write, the better you get at it. Write what you feel like writing. Don't worry about selling it. Just write it. Write the story you want to tell, because you know what? You're the only person who can tell your story. If it sells, that's great. If you get it out there and publish it and it sells, great. If you send it to somebody and they publish it, great. I know that with my Tales of Wonder and Dread publishing, I've had several writers who have said was their first publication, and they're very pleased with that. And I didn't know that until much later. But, you'll find somebody. Oh, and if you send stuff into an editor and it gets rejected, don't take it personally. Editors are human beings. Every editor has different preferences. I used to write, when I used to do a lot of freelance writing, I'd find that different editors wanted things written different ways. And they, if I wrote the way I'd write for one editor and send it to another editor, they'd want to rewrite on it. So, don't take it personally. Don't think that this is the end all with this. Editors are different. And you also might get to an editor who's just having a bad day, and it might not hit him that day. Whereas or her, and if you would send it in a different day, it might have gotten taken. So, you can't take that criticism as, oh, I suck. You just go on and send it to someone else. If you get some constructive criticism from an editor, think about it and say, okay, does this make sense? And maybe make some changes. But, you don't get discouraged by it, because everybody's different. I've had editors who like one thing and hate something else, and another editor will be the exact opposite. And when I reject something, and I don't reject a lot of stuff, but I always tell people, don't worry about it. It's just me. It's not going to fit with what I'm doing, or, I didn't particularly care for it, but somebody else might. So you've got to be okay with taking that and just not saying it, not taking it personally and not letting it discourage you. Because trust me, you're going to get rejections.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And I guess, one thing on that, and our producer is big on saying this, and I've heard it a lot of places, but don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of my growing up. That was one of my biggest regrets is that when I was a kid, if I tried to do something and I failed at it the first time, I usually wouldn't try to do it again. I'd be like, oh, I suck at this. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you've got to keep doing it to get better at it. And I really regret that. There are a lot of things I probably could have done that I might have enjoyed doing more, but, I gave up on it.
Well, hey, Gary, we have run through 50 minutes.
All right.
Where does the time go?
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to looking up your YouTube channel and probably going to get on. I love to read. I've got piles and piles of books around the house.
That's when you can tell somebody who loves books, because it's the same way in this house. We're loaded with books in this house.
Yes. Picture books. Ha.
Hey, I published a few picture books.
Would I have to color them myself, or
no, not those kind. No, I published some books that are basically photographs of cemeteries around the area.
Oh, cool.
With a little bit of text, but it's mostly just photos.
Cool. Well, hey, that's a completely different. That could be another show.
There you go. So yeah, and I should mention also on the YouTube channel, you'll find I do a lot of movie reviews. I do a review just about every week on Wednesdays. So tomorrow there'll be a new one coming out. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely look that up. Gary, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I really enjoyed the conversation. Really interesting. Like I said, I'm a big fan of horror and science fiction myself. So this here was a real good chat.
This was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And you went right at it head first and wrestling.
Yeah.
And hey, when you make it big and write that bestseller movie and it hits the theaters and stuff, why, think of us little folks and come on the show again and we'll talk about it.
Hey, I'll come back on anytime you want me.
All right.
I mean, good. So we can probably fill another hour going through all this. This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could. Well, hey, I guess Misfit Nation, it's time for us to bid adieu. And remember to like and subscribe, and remember that we love y'all, and we look forward to seeing you next Tuesday.
And again, if you didn't vote, no crying tomorrow.
That's right. Don't care who you vote for, just get out there and vote.
Well, voting's probably closed now, but still.
I think they're probably still open on the West Coast.
All right. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Gary. You have a great evening.
This is a message from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Got a question about your VA benefits, healthcare, or eligibility? Go to va.gov, where you can access a new interactive chatbot to ask questions 24/7. One can still browse va.gov for information, but you can now ask specific questions to the chatbot, like what's the PACT Act? How do I apply for disability benefits? What's my claim status? You can access the new feature through va.gov's Contact Us page. Then click on the Start Chat button. The chatbot will continue to improve veterans' access to information about the benefits and services they've earned. This is one way VA.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.